There are few things in war more dangerous than a night attack. Defenders are caught off guard, disoriented, woken from their sleep into a living nightmare. Attackers are blind, stumbling through someone else's home territory, terrified of unseen traps and monsters lurking in the dark. Ademar loved them. They reminded him of his youth, of being a boy without fear, charging through the dark with reckless abandon. His father once told him men are only afraid when staring into the dark. They are rarely afraid when staring out from it. The Adderland soldiers were not so courageous. Many legends persisted about the Tsar, passed down from the last war, of horrors fought and monsters run from, of the demons that still lurked in the ruins of a forgotten empire. His presence steadied them. There wasn't a soldier in the army who didn't know Ademar of House Lothian, Knight Paladin of Adderley, or know of him. They faced only one skirmish since landing on the continent's shores, running headlong into a Hoenn scouting expedition near some great lake east of Mistras. There were those who doubted the Paladin's courage before that battle, thinking him no more than a spoiled rich heir come to play army in his shining armor. None doubted him after, watching in awe as Ademar cut down a dozen men all on his own, all the while rallying the frightened soldiers around him. The army may have marched under the banner of Commander Rise, but it was Ademar they followed into battle. Over 1,000 of Adderley's finest soldiers hid in the fog. Scouts found a drainage ditch blocked by rusting, rotting bars. The Hoenn troops sleeping in a forgotten fort never even knew they were there. Ademar and his men would be the first through, to open the gates and let the rest of the army in. Then it would be up to Ademar to take the citadel, to break the enemy's will to fight, take the fort, force the Hoenn menace to retreat, end the war. It was raining, hard, the drops fell thick as grapes as they reached the ditch. It would dampen the sound of their approach, but it would also knock away the fog, reveal the army's position. Thunder rippled overhead, hiding the noise of hacking away at the old bars, but waking the sleeping soldiers from peaceful slumber. They had to move fast. Ademar's blade reflected a sky full of lightning as he cut down their screaming faces. Dozens, hundreds, none could stand against him. The men rallied. His presence made them stronger, braver, like they were a part of something. But then they faltered, ran, screaming and afraid. Death Knight. Down below in the courtyard, holding the breach at the gates. The two paladins fought one another, seemingly alone as the war raged around them and the sky roared with fury. The occasional grunt tried to interfere, to sneak in a stab from the side when their guard was down, but they swatted them away like flies. Ademar slipped on the steps and the Death Knight almost got him. He raised his sword just in time, recovered and pushed on as they fought their way up the stone steps of the tower. The Death Knight never faltered, never seemed to grow tired. Ademar's chest heaved, his muscles ached with every swing of the arm, spasmed with every blocked blow. They were on the roof now, the roof of the tower. The sky lit up bright as day, and both warriors stopped to watch the lightning race across the sky. They waited. They knew it was going to be a big one. The night sky ripped apart and then thundered, a great boom rattling the very stones they stood upon. Slowly, sounds drifted back to them from below, the clash of two nations fighting for supremacy, one to gain the continent, the other to stop them from taking it. "I don't suppose you'll yield," yelled Ademar over the rain. The Death Knight reached up and removed his helm, letting it fall to the stone. He was breathing heavy, every bit as worn out as Ademar. He let the rain wash over his face, eyes closed contently. His eyes opened, he shook his head and smiled, like they were brothers, like they'd gotten into trouble again and one of them was going to have to explain to mother and father what happened. He looked no different from Ademar, really, save a scar cutting across his left eye. But he was just a man in the service of his gods, their gods. The Death Knight rushed forward and the two clashed, blow after blow, block after block as the storm raged around them. They knew what was at stake. Whichever of them survived would turn the tide of battle. The battle was enough to decide the theater The theater would determine the war. For all the maneuvering of armies, for all the logistical complexities, the entire war came down to two men battling on top of a tower in the middle of a storm. Or so it felt. Ademar's back smacked against the stone crenellations. He blocked as the Death Knight swung down at him. There was nowhere else to go, nothing left to do but yield and be disgraced the rest of his days, or stand and die. He couldn't accept it, not after everything he'd done. The sacrifices, the hard work, the years of rigorous training. He couldn't let it all have been for nothing. The Death Knight stabbed and Ademar parried, pushing himself forward. He slipped past the Death Knight, reversed their fortunes. The Hoenn felt the change, swung his sword wildly back at Ademar's head. He saw the glint of the Death Knight's steel in his eyes, and panicked. "Weimar!" called Ademar. The gods answered. The Death Knight was lifted off his feet, thrown up and back by a great gust of wind. The blacksmith's billows. The Death Knight screamed, but his breath was ripped away by a vengeful wind, the wind of an angry storm, the wind of a wrathful god. Ademar dove forward, dropping his sword and reaching out to catch him, but the man from Hoenn was pulled up and away, up over the parapet as though he were wheat caught in the breeze. The Death Knight's arms and legs flailed wildly, but there was nothing he could do, nothing he could grab onto. He hit the ground with a sickening crack of his armor on stone. The fighting stopped. Hoenn soldiers looked down at their slain champion with horror, the Atterlayans with relief. Ademar's legs buckled beneath him, his chest tight, struggling even to breathe. He slid into a seated position, his back against the stone crenellations, as the horror of what he'd done descended upon him. He not only killed a fellow paladin, killed a chosen champion of the gods. He used their very words to do it. Ademar looked up in desperation, praying for something, anything that could help, but he saw only the horrified face of a maiden, a girl who was never there. Beralt. Ingrid still sat on her throne, the guards gone back to being statues strategically placed around Hedeby. She looked down at the bag of diamonds on the floor as if they were no more than wriggling worms. She didn't look any happier at the sight of him, either. "Still here, after everything you've done," she spat. It was okay. He deserved it. "I'm sorry," he said, stepping past the diamonds, stopping at the edge of the stone platform. "Shouldn't you be off tending to your friend?" she sulked. "Oriel, the healers, they've got him," said Beralt. "Was any of it true?" she asked. "No," he answered, and though the truth hurt, he was glad to have said it. "What are you really?" she demanded. He shrugged. "Beralt, son of Beralt." "Thief, liar," she scoffed. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," said Beralt. "No, you just meant to steal a haul of diamonds," said Ingrid. She flicked her chin toward the bag. "Well, there they are. Go on, take them." "I don't want them," said Beralt, and he meant it. "All this and you don't want them," she sneered. "The price was too high," said Beralt. He turned, sat on the edge of the stone platform. It was easier than looking at her. "Only shame is I didn't realize it till it was too late," said Beralt. "What will you do now?" she asked, curled on her throne with her legs tucked in front of her, like the knight in a library. "Assuming you won't have me hanged? I don't know. I doubt my friends will even talk to me," said Beralt, his chin resting in his hands. "At least you have them. My only friend turned out to be a lying thief," said Ingrid. "You don't want to be my friend. All I do is hurt them," said Beralt. He got up, forced himself to take one last pained look at her. Beralt wished he didn't see the tears in her eyes, the genuine hurt in her heart. He knew it would haunt him. On lonely nights, when he was trapped in another cell, he'd think back and wonder what could have been if only he'd gone to that dinner. She said nothing, only glared at him in betrayal. He turned and walked out of the palace, the guards never bothering to even look at him. Beralt knocked softly on the door of their room at the church. No answer came. He eased it open and saw Ademar lying in bed. Oriel sat in a chair watching over him. His torso was bare, his chest wrapped in all manner of bandages. The old knight seemed to be resting. Beralt entered the room with his head low. Oriel made no effort to throw him out, even if he had it coming. "Is he going to be okay?" Beralt asked meekly. "He'll live," said Oriel with a clenched jaw. "The whole thing just spun out of control," said Beralt. "I hope it was worth it," said Oriel, unable to bring herself to look at him. "I'm not like you guys, okay? With your vows and your gods. I didn't grow up on some estate. I never had any great calling. I'm just a guy trying to get by," said Beralt. Oriel nodded at Ademar's bloody bandages. "Is this what you call getting by?" "He didn't have to stick his neck out for me," said Beralt. "Yes, he did," said Oriel, turning to look at Beralt with such cold fury in her eyes that he nearly fled the room. "He wasn't going to stand by and watch as that Death Knight cut you down." She turned back to Ademar, forced herself to remain composed. "And neither would I, even if you deserved it." Beralt sat down on the bed next to Ademar, his head hung low. "I just don't get it." "Protecting other people? I wouldn't expect you to," said Oriel. "Not that. I get what you do, why you do it, even if I could never be some hero," said Beralt. "What I don't get is why he would let himself be stabbed like that. Ademar had that guy. He could have taken him, but he just stepped into it anyway." "It was the only way to end the fight," said Oriel softly. "The Death Knight would never yield. Ademar would have to kill him, or let the Death Knight kill you. He found another way." "He chose wrong. He should have let them kill me," said Beralt. "That's not what champions do," said Oriel, looking at Ademar. "I wish I could see the world the same way as you. Seems a lot cleaner than how I see it," said Beralt. Oriel took a deep breath, rose from the chair placed beside the bed. She made to leave the room, but stopped and turned back to Beralt. "The thing about heroes, Beralt, none of us were born this way. We came to it each on our own, in our own time, for our own reasons." She smiled at him, a gentle, caring smile, even though it was the last thing he deserved. "The only thing you have to do to be a hero is be one." This has been a reading from my book, The Eye of Syl. You can pick up your very own copy in print over at Amazon, or as an ebook through Amazon or Google Play. I make these videos as a way to promote my writing, and even though the channel has seen a lot of increased traffic thanks to the Sims video, sales have been the worst this month they've been in over a year. I know things are tough out there right now for everybody, but if you want to support the channel and encourage me to make more videos, please consider picking up a book. Thank you for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.